Joe Biden will accept the nomination for president with a big speech tonight to close out the Democratic National Convention. We are now 75 days away from Election Day. Angela Rye and Paul Begala are back with us. So, Paul, how hard will this be for Joe Biden tonight to follow what we've already discussed? Have been, pretty remarkable speeches from, well, everybody from Michelle Obama to Barack Obama, Kamala Harris. And what does he need to say?
Well, actually, I think it's easier because of the remarkable work that Michelle, President Obama, President Clinton, Hillary, Speaker Pelosi, Gabby Giffords, that all makes it easier for him because it makes his job simpler. I love Jessica's report. I'm sure it's right. I hope it's right that he's going to focus more on the positive than on the negative. Now, I love negative campaigning more than anything. It's the only reason I got in this business. But for Joe tonight, here's what he's got to do. Tell us who you are. People don't know the story of how he healed his shattered family. The people who cover him may be sick of hearing it, but most folks haven't heard it. He got 17 million votes in the primary. 17 million. He needs 70 million to be president. So he's got to introduce himself. Second, root your policies in your values, Joe, and root your values in your biography. Joe is not for childcare because some, propeller head at a think tank gave him a position paper. It's because he was a single dad, trying to hold down a pretty important job while doing the most important job of raising his kids. He's got to do that. Third, he's got to do addition, right? Reach out to get to that 70 million. And finally, focus on the future more than the past. He has a great record behind him. He's done a lot of good. Don't talk too much about that. Talk more about what he's going to do for me in the future.
Yeah, you don't need to hear about the 70s, I hear a lot of Democrats saying at this point. You need to hear about the 2020s. Angela, if you've looked at the three nights, you can see which voting groups have been focused on so far. You've had the John Kasases of the world and sort of the never-Trump Republicans brought in, and I know that you had some issues with that, but they were a focus. You've also, I think, to an extent, now had some reach out to the progressive wing of the party and also African-American voters who didn't show up in numbers that they had in the past in 2016. But one group that I'm not sure has been directly addressed is that Obama to Trump voter. Specifically, the voter in Michigan or in Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, the so-called non-college white working class voter that had been in the Democratic column for a long time and has shifted. How or should Joe Biden address that group?
I'm not the best person to ask that question because my truth is that I think that the Democratic Party has spent a lot of money, has spent a lot of time, and has spent a lot of effort on courting voters that they quite frankly have lost. When we talk about the 53% of white women who voted for Donald Trump, you are forgetting about all of the people that they could have won over if there had been greater investment in targeted outreach to communities of color, because there was still other voters who were available and just didn't even vote at the top of the ballot in 2016. I think that is a real challenge. When we talk about this other amorphous voter, I think that John Kasich can certainly speak to that voter. I think that they have been integrated at every single stage of this convention. And I actually disagree a little bit. I don't think they're the only ones left. I also think there's a young voter who is not in party politics, who is turned off by both sides of the aisle. And I'm not at all saying that the Democrats are the exact same as the Republicans, but I do think that we struggle a little bit with being honest and transparent. And so when you talk about what Joe Biden needs to do today, he absolutely should go forward, but he should go forward by reckoning with his past, by understanding that it is not leadership to dig your heels in to policies that may have worked before, that have not served in this particular demographic, the young voter, that first-time voter who may have been adversely impacted by some of the policies that he pushed. But there was a pivot in the summer that Barack Obama talked about with these young people who have led us to a different, new, and better America. It's time for him to also unite with that part of not even the party, but that part of the country, because these young folks don't see themselves in any certain political party box. So I think that's super important for him to do tonight as well.
But this is where it gets dicey, I think, Angela and Paul, to you. While we are having this conversation right here on the air, over on President Trump's favorite channel, they are talking nonstop about the violence in the United States. They have scenes from Portland on repeat that they play over and over as though American cities are in flames. And that's what they're talking about. And so For the swing voter, for people who are getting that message that something is going wrong in the streets, that President Trump is going to be tough on crime, does Joe Biden need to talk about that tonight and say explicitly, I will not defund the police? Does he need to reach out to people who are nervous on that level?
He has, and I don't really know if he will tonight or not. I think that particular phrase, defund the police, has been discredited. Joe Biden has said, I'm not going to defund the police, don't worry. I think it's more important, though, to use the word that Michelle Obama used, Bill Clinton used. This was intentional: chaos. In other words, use all that footage from Portland. When you talk about violence and gangs, I thought you were talking about Charlottesville. I thought you were talking about, 100% of the political murders in the last 2 years were by right-wing political extremists, not left-wing. So I think that Joe can speak to that very powerfully, but you can't fall into their trap. The chaos in this country is at the doorstep of Mr. Trump. He feeds off it. He loves it. That's his brand. And I think that chaos redounds to Mr. Trump's detriment. I think that's why Michelle Obama talked about it. President Clinton talked about it. I think Joe can talk about it. And that chaos is everywhere. It's not just in Portland. The pain is out there. My God, rural America has this same crisis of drug use, gun violence, lost economic hope that you see in the cities and also in the suburbs. So I think Joe's got a chance to try to stitch this country back together while Mr. Trump is trying to divide it. I like that Joe is pitching unity over Trump's division.
You heard Kamala Harris use the phrase loss of certainty, which I think is something that resonates with every group right now during this pandemic. Everyone is feeling a loss of certainty. Angela Rye, Paul Begala, you were up all night. You didn't sleep. We appreciate you. We see
Sleep is
you.
overrated, Berman.
What, you're telling us? You're telling us? Thank you both. I appreciate you both being
Thank
here.
you guys very much.
Thank you.
So